Greetings, everyone. This is Friday, April 23rd of 2020, and I am finally doing another vlog post. And of course, just like with my regular blog, my posts are intermittent and sporadic and rare. And I have been meaning to do one during this whole quarantine and just haven't. Just been battling my depression and my suicidal ideation and my fear of abandonment and loneliness, everything, and my anxiety, everything that I think that we are all experiencing during this crisis. And even people who consider themselves, I was listening to NPR the other day and someone talking about and reporting about some people have locked their guns away, people who are gun owners, like, you know, they're in a safety box at the moment. And that's, you know, for people who once considered themselves, you know, wouldn't consider themselves depressives or, you know, or anything. It's a very difficult time. So I'm going to start off this post by saying that I hope you are all relatively sane. You haven't killed your partner or your children, although I know many of you have probably contemplated it during this time. And I have obviously my emotions have it's just been a fucking roller coaster going through all this with living alone, living completely by myself in a big house, which I am fortunate to live in, and I am also fortunate that I am able to make money at the moment. But yeah, it's, you know, since I was in the restaurant industry for so many years and knowing a lot of my friends who are still in it, and obviously also having a lot of friends who are in the medical profession as well, you know, and catching up with all of them and getting their feedback and how everything is going. There's so many things that I have been experiencing, and I'm just trying to take things day by day. I finally have tried to get a schedule because I know for me, I have always been kind of a night owl and not really been a morning person, as I have said that it has been shocking for me before of waking up in between 7 and 7, anywhere from 7 a.m. to, you know, like 8:30 a.m. for the past 3 years before the quarantine, before COVID-19 put us all into quarantine, and doing that for with going to CrossFit and going to boot camp classes. And so that was a structure for part of my day. It was also how I was even got my human to human interaction. It was also a source of positive feedback. It was also a source of therapy for me. And not having that, even though, you know, my gym has been doing Zoom calls and at the regular scheduled times, it's just not the same, obviously. We all know that. So I've only done one Zoom call in the entire 5 weeks that we have been in quarantine. And I did that a couple weeks ago that I did that one Zoom call, right? So just trying to get into and now the weather is finally getting warmer here in Vegas, and always my struggle with just trying to get the dogs out for exercise and taking them for walks or for runs, and because they desperately need it, and trying to fit that during the time of when it's not brutally hot outside. So I think I finally came up with a schedule of working out around 1600 and for a few hours. I just worked out for the first time and did actually lifting for the first time in a couple weeks on Wednesday, and I am so sore from it. And I did a little bit of exercise yesterday as well. I didn't on Wednesday, I also went for a 3-mile run with Bronick and Atticus, is the usual square that I do. And then I did a little over a mile walk with Pavlina and DeSoto, the 2 smaller dogs. And so that's usually what I do when I go and take them out. And yesterday, however, because I was so sore, I knew that my run wasn't really going to be that great. And I just decided to have kind of more of an active recovery day. And I did a little light lifting. I did some booty exercises, definitely feeling those today. And I walked Bronick and Atticus yesterday for 2 miles and then did the little over mile loop that I do with Pavlina and DeSoto. So that was, and Bronick would like to say hello. Say hello, Bronick. And I need to give them all a bath, which they have desperately needed a bath, but it hadn't been warm enough. It only really just started to get warm here in Vegas. But now I'm so sore that I feel like bending down to give them a bath is not going to be good for me. So I'm trying to figure out when I am going to do that. Hello, my handsome boy. So that has been the quick little, my quick little recap of this past week. And obviously I did do kind of a vlog post for my OnlyFans, and I couldn't put it on YouTube because I had music playing in the background, and then obviously with copyright infringement, etc., did not want to end because I showed my tits sometimes throughout the video that I ended up posting. And so it has been, let's see, I wrote down a few things since obviously my ADD gets in the way, as you know, and I decided to shoot this today, right now, because the lighting is very good, as you can see. So the only people that I have seen in the, can you stop? Hi. Okay, now Atticus would like to say hello. So I have been, I know all of us have been watching a crap load of TV, and I've been watching a lot of comedy. I still, as I tweeted out the other day, I watch Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, A Late Show with Stephen Colbert, The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, and I watch Real Time with Bill Maher. So those are my four comedians that I watch, and those are the clippets that I get of our awful administration and his lying, in addition to listening to NPR in the morning when I'm fixing myself breakfast or cooking. And yeah, it's just, oh man. I've touched on this on my Snapchat, so I won't go farther down this hole, but it's just obviously needless to say, it has not helped with the weed smoking and the drinking and my depression. And I did finally not drink for the past couple weeks. I've been pretty good. I mean, I've obviously been drinking, but last night I had a beer and started off with like a little swig of bourbon because I had 2 bottles of Blanton's left over from my birthday that I was given, and I decided to crack one open on 4/20 because that's the one holiday that I get, as I have said, as an atheist stoner. So I decided to have a little swig of that and have a beer with dinner last night, or after dinner, actually. I got off of MFC and then had a beer and watched Who Won't You Be My Neighbor, because my best friend informed me that I should watch it. And I had seen the doc and I was like, oh, do I really want to watch a documentary on Mr. Rogers. And even though I grew up with him as a child, I obviously didn't really appreciate him until I watched that documentary, and I fucking bawled my eyes out, guys. So if you're looking for something to like as a good cry, and if you're someone who grew up watching Mr. Rogers and desperately needs to be told that you have value and that you're deserving of love, you should totally fucking watch it. You will bawl your eyes out, okay? I'm just, again, giving you that warning, but it's totally worth it. And I'm smoking weed and drinking this to balance each other out. And while I am doing this, I was going to roll up a joint, since I definitely do. I go through these phases of having these intoxicated, stoned, euphoric moments, and having these ideas come to mind. So what else have I've been watching Westworld. I've been watching a lot of programs on HBO. HBO is pretty much the go-to channel that I watch a lot of programming on. So Westworld, I've been a fan of, been watching that, really intrigued, and it's really been cool to see the, how they set up and all the cinematography and all the work that they've done and all the little clippets that they've done at the end of the episodes that dives into the show. So I've really appreciated that. And of course, I didn't watch the first series or, the first season of My Brilliant Friend, but I got into the second season, and it's a beautifully shot show. So it's in Italian, and I really appreciate that story. Plot Against America, which is obviously based on the Philip Roth novel. And then I listened to the podcast with Peter Sagal, because obviously I listened to him on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, and with the executive producer and creator David Simon. So so that has obviously been very intriguing to watch, particularly now with the divisiveness that has permeated throughout our society in the past 4 years. I mean, it's been there forever, but particularly how it has permeated in the past 4 years with the current administration. And I finally, so I started cutting again at the end of week 1. So yeah, in case you have seen my clippets through Snapchat and so forth and have maybe caught my arm. And so that was bad, and then started to feel decently well, or not decently well, but started to feel okay, at least like by the second week. And my friends gave me, I've been wearing a mask whenever I have gone outside to the grocery store, which is really it's the only place that I've gone. I've gone to Whole Paycheck and I've gone to Costco. And my friend who is a nurse, she made a couple masks, and one has doggies on it and the other one is kitties, so they're perfect for me. And so she dropped those off to me in the second week, and so I've been wearing a mask every time that I've gone out in public. And it's, again, I know my thoughts are all over the place. I tried to write down, but just thinking about now I'm on the subject of masks and thinking how we're still short of supplies and all of that, and how we don't have tests. Anyway, and also with watching Stephen Colbert, he had Bill Gates on last night, and listening to him, and obviously they talked about Bill Gates's TED Talk that he did in 2015, warning us that we should prepare for a pandemic. And I mean, any experts and intelligent people have been warning us, and people who work, like, obviously we have seen epidemics arise and we haven't, and to go through this pandemic during a time of incompetency in our leadership, again, goes back to why I really need to smoke a lot of weed. No, and goes back to also being just a fucking, it's so depressing. And I have had these fits of laughter, right? Because that's the only, hysterical fits of laughter, because that's the only thing that I feel that I can do, where it's just, it's so, it's just so appalling to me, the level of incompetency and stupidity and narcissism, and I can't, I have to laugh, right? To try to, so I don't just fucking lop my head off or something. I just, yeah, I can't, it's so bad. It's so bad. I wish that I start to think about Doctor Who, right? And I've mentioned this before about wanting to be, I wish there was some way, and in this current time of living, that we could peep into an alternate universe and to see how things would have been, right? If Gore had been our president, and then if Clinton, and Gore, Obama, and then Clinton, if that had been the way that things went, to see how the would be handling this right now. Do I think that the pandemic would have occurred, obviously, still with this administration, or with a different administration? Yes, absolutely. But at the same time, I would like to peep into that alternate universe to see how the response would be different, because I know the response would be different, right? So there's, you know, again, my brain going in every which direction. All right, so back to cutting and dealing with this crisis and all of these anxieties. And so felt a little better through the second week and to the end of the third week. And then at the end of the third week, I started cutting again. And so I haven't cut in, when did I start cutting again? Oh, I started cutting again in the fall, right? And before that, prior to that, it was 5 years. Because I think I was still cutting a little bit when I first moved to Vegas. And after my friend helped me move to Vegas and then stopped talking to me because he's not really that awesome of a person. So, and then started dating someone who didn't really want to be with me. Again, always being the fuck girl role. So yeah, so it was 5 years, pretty much, of four years of me not cutting. And then started cutting again in the fall after the lackluster tours that I had both in Vancouver and San Francisco, and then ending my San Francisco tour with being a victim of that that piece of shit who gave me fake money, right? Because I was stupid and didn't check. I mean, luckily, I didn't get raped or assaulted by him because I think he knew that he couldn't take me. That's the one benefit still of being in the shape that I am in. People are less likely to fuck with me. I've touched on this. Oh, and it's 4:20. So I did pour myself a little bourbon. I know it's in the middle of the fucking day, but to keep my self on track here. Anyway, so, and because I didn't actually post my 420 post, here's my like belated 420 post, and here's to the end of a week of this fucking shit. Okay, very little though, very little. Anyway, so yeah, started cutting again at the end of week 3, and then I cut for 4 days straight, and haven't done that ever. I don't think. Not like intentionally, like here. That's literally the mindset that I had. I nicked myself pretty good on Friday, and I like lightly wrapped a towel around my arm and then bled through my bandage and the towel and got blood on my sheets. And it was actually really, because I was definitely manic, right? And during this, because I remember I was getting blood everywhere. Not everywhere, I wasn't splurting blood everywhere, but I definitely, you know, I got blood in my journal that I write in. I was kind of like laughing about it, right? And because that's just the point that I was at. And then I got blood in, you know, the bathroom downstairs, my bathroom sink. I wrote really awful things. And I even said this, that I was kind of feeling like Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of Joker. And then, of course, I watched that movie because, you know, that's a really happy movie to get yourself back on track to watch. And so I watched that on Saturday and, you know, just started once I woke up, and I wanted to hang out with my cute 25-year-old boy, and he ended up making other plans to see his family instead, which I totally would have understood if he had just informed me of earlier in the day, but he kind of waited until the last minute, and then I didn't hear from him until 1500 on Saturday. So that felt like shit. It was the one person that you want to get some sort of affection from just totally ignores you, and that's really, really difficult. And I was not, and kind of still am not, in a strong enough place to be able to stand on my own, right? And it sucks because it's frustrating to me, obviously, as a somewhat intelligent person, and being like, and knowing that I can't rely on anyone else, right? You shouldn't. I've known this forever, that you cannot rely on other people. The only person that you can rely on is yourself and my dogs. That's what I know, you know, and my cats. But as far as affection goes, but it's deeply damaging when when you've circled down into the darkest place that you are constantly battling. And I have had this battle with myself of these feeling like I am worthless and that I'm not deserving of love and that I'm just good to fuck, right? So and then even though you know that you're too much for most people, like most of the boys that I meet are boys. They can't handle someone like me for an extensive amount of reasons that I have gone through. One being how sexual of a person that I am. And as much as you boys love to say that you want sex constantly, like being with someone who is hypersexual, yeah, you can't cut it. You would like to think that you can, but you can't. So, yeah, reached out to this boy, and then he just ignored me. And that really hurt me because I was just in this horrible place. Because of my battles with loneliness and living by myself through through all of this and not even having a room, even though I've come to this place of appreciating not having, I like the fact of not having roommates. I can fucking, you know, whip out my fucking pussy and start masturbating, or I could just be sitting here watching TV and touching my pussy and not have to work, you know what I mean? There's just little things like that that I do appreciate, or not having a child, for instance, and having that same, you know, experience of, you know, not having to worry about, I can do whatever the fuck I want being on my own. And I've come to appreciate that. But at times, obviously, I am fucking lonely. Like I need physical touch. I need to be held and kissed and cuddled and fucked. And being single and still not having a partner in life where I'm able to do that with, especially during this pandemic, has been very difficult for me. And also another thing that I realized is that during this time of year is always difficult for me to begin with. And looking at my past history of suicidal attempts has always been around this time of year, or, you know, like in mid to early to late April type of thing. Or even May, I think, you know, when I mean, obviously my toxic relationship that I was in with my Wall Streeter came the closest ever to killing myself and being successful at it, was Mother's Day. So that was the very beginning of May. So it's a very difficult time for me, historically. And then also 7 years ago, I went to India, and this was I went to India to do the documentary production class that I was in. And I met this beautiful young woman named Arya. And she, as I said, had the most amazing smile. And I still think about it, still thinking about her and thinking about that beautiful smile and thinking that she has been gone for 7 years now. And it still hurts me that she killed herself. And, you know, I still wish that she and I had been closer, so maybe she could have confided in me or something, but, you know, I didn't know of how much she was struggling, and I feel bad about that. And then in the same week, Bella, my foster dog that I had, she had to be euthanized because she was deemed too unpredictable. And so I went through that, and then also going through that, my ex-husband at the time, he almost burnt down the apartment, my Brooklyn apartment, because he was really pissed. He had destroyed most of my paintings that I had done for painting one, and then he had destroyed a lot of the things that I had brought back from my India trip. And so I was going through that. I was going through this toxic triangle with my Wall Streeter. Then this Arya committed suicide, and I had to put the Bella down. So there was a lot within a short span of time during this time of year that I was dealing with 7 years ago. And I'm still, you know, I still have like PTSD from not only that relationship, but I feel like during that time, and even though I've done so much, or I felt that I have done so much within the past few years in my mental health, not having CrossFit and knowing how much that helped me, basically it was part of my therapy, right? And being in that community and being in that cult, you know, because people make fun of us and they call us a cult, but it is true. I mean, we like to suffer together and cheer each other on. And I have missed that camaraderie and that competitiveness. And again, because I'm somewhat decent at CrossFit and being a somewhat strong person, I was also getting that positive feedback, and it was good for me. And so now that has been torn away from me, and also not having a partner and not having other people around, and only having really my human-to-human interactions being with the grocery store attendants. That's it. You know, it's not really like an intimate relationship. So it was ridiculously, and it is still ridiculously difficult for me to be going through all of this and trying to battle all the things that I was already battling. And it's just has been exacerbated, right, during this isolation. So, and I reached out to a couple people that Friday when I started cutting, and because I knew I just needed the attention of a boy, right? Sadly to say, I needed to feel wanted. I needed to feel like I had some worth, even if at a superficial level of just wanting to be fucked, right? So I reached out to a couple people, and then the other being the 26-year-old that I was dating before, and he didn't respond back. He responded back to me the next afternoon and said that he was too high, and so he was, you know, kind of worthless with being that stoned. So then I told he and the 25-year-old that in case I have to, because they're the only two outside of my pet sitter who has met my menagerie of animals, right? So because I had been bleeding through the night, I was like, fuck, if I don't get this to stop, I might have to go to the hospital. And then I just felt like shittier, because here hospital workers are dealing with coronavirus and I'm trying to kill myself, right? Like, I just felt selfish and fucking stupid. So then that made me feel shittier. Like, okay, you're just a fucking waste of space. So that's the negative cycle, one that goes down. It's like, oh, you fucking piece of shit. Like, people are dealing with real fucking shit and you're slicing your fucking wrist. So that's where I went down. But I was thinking, like, even though I knew probably that my pet sitter would be able to watch them, I wanted someone else to know who has met my menagerie, to know in case I did have to go to the hospital, and kind of give them a heads up. And so, and I also prefaced and said that, hey, like, you know, if you can just come over and maybe just hang out with me and smoke with me, just to have, you know, like, human company, that would be awesome. And yeah, didn't even get a response back. And he hasn't even, like, checked in with me since then. So obviously they knew that I was cutting and they didn't care. Or not that they didn't care, but they just don't know what to do. And I understand that. People don't know how to deal with someone who is doing that. But at this, you know, some people just don't. But at the same time, there are people who do, and who can at least say to me, fucking stop it. Or, you know, what the fuck are you doing? And that type of thing. And that's what I did at the end of the first week when I was cutting. And then I reached out to my friend who was in the UK, the one that I got the BMW from. And he, you know, talk to me for an hour. And I kind of felt like shit after talking to him for an hour, because he's actually, you know, working defense and has an actual job and trying to keep his country and all of us safe, working cybersecurity, and I'm being a piece of shit. So again, that's the constant cycle of me always going back to like, I am fucking worthless and I am shit. So that's where I just kept going with every action that I was doing in between the end of week 1 and then into week 3 and into week 4. So yeah, that was really bad. And I reached out to one person in the industry, again, another boy, and he's like the one person who has been nice to me, and he actually called me to check in on me because I'd left him a sad audio message being like, I wish we lived in the same city so that we could cuddle and fuck and, and not be alone, or I wouldn't be alone. And so he actually called me to check in on me. So that, I was appreciative of that. And yeah, it was just, no matter, I wasn't getting any affection whatsoever, really. And so I cut for 4 days in a row, finally stopped on, I think, what was it? Was it Monday night? Yeah, I think it was Monday night. And I don't think that I had lost that much blood, but I think because within the time of Friday to Monday, and even though from Friday night to Monday night, I had stopped the bleeding, like I'd stopped the bleeding, I think on sometime on Saturday, and then started to cut again like Saturday night, and then kind of, stopped it when I went to sleep, and then started it again. Like I was waking up to, and then cutting. And there was one night that I only got a couple hours of sleep, so that wasn't good. And then, yeah, on Monday night, I remember it was bad. I got up, and I think on Sunday, I wanted to see how, because you have to lose a lot of blood, right, to actually be able to be successful at killing yourself. You really have to go deep to get to that place. And so when I knew that, and I knew from my previous attempt that, and this is why you always see people who open up their wrists and they're in bathtubs, because the water prevents your blood from coagulating. So I had a pitcher of water, and I was sticking my arm there to like keep the blood flow going, and to keep the little drip going. And then I was dripping my blood into a measuring cup. Like, that's how fucking sad I got, guys, because to be able to measure how much blood I was losing. And then I remember I got up, and Pavlina, I think, was the only dog that was out, and my cats were out, and the boys were away because I was giving the cats some time downstairs. And I got up and to start letting the dogs out before I actually like went upstairs to attempt to sleep. And my blood pressure just suddenly dropped. And I think because I got up too quickly, I had been drinking, obviously, and I just fell outside, like I just dropped to and laid down on the cement outside to the yard, because I just wanted to feel the coolness of the cement, of the concrete. And yeah, I just remember sweating, and it was really scary, because I was like, oh fuck, like what if I pass out, and what if I don't wake up? And so then I was like, okay, I'm done doing this. And then I stopped. And then, so finally it was just starting to emerge out of my depression, I guess on Tuesday, like after that night. And then for whatever fucking reason, I decided to watch, because I had been watching a lot of the documentaries on HBO, and I decided to watch Atlanta's Missing Children, because, that's really the thing to watch when you are sad, depressed, and have been cutting for 4 nights straight. It's to watch the documentary on murdered children. Good job. So that's what I decided to do. And I hadn't, the women that I'm in a group text with that I usually worked out with, you know, one of them had asked me, hey, like, what's going on? Are you around? And I finally responded that night and said, hey, like, I'm alive, unfortunately, and told them that, you know, just got out of a really severe depressive episode and decided to watch this wonderful documentary. And then I decided to watch On the Basis of Sex after that because I needed to watch a hero of mine, a story about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, to at least try to pull me out of my fucking depression. So that's what I finally did, and that's what I have been doing. And it has, yeah, so this is the end of week 5, right? And hopefully, I'm hoping that I'm going to get through this, but I think that we are going to be, now, sorry, Atticus is chewing on a toy. I think that we're going to be dealing with this for a while, and there is a part of me who is actually really considering that I'm not going to see clients until there is a vaccine, because I kind of feel that it's already bad enough. I know that I've seen like 4 people really from face to face. One of them was the nurse who dropped off the mask to me, and then my eyelash artist, and my 25-year-old boy, and this new boy, and that I just met a couple weeks ago. So obviously it started to feel better, and then started to hang out with this new boy because I was that fucking lonely, and I knew that I could not have another weekend of cutting. I knew that it was not going to be good for me, and so I needed attention. And so I know that it's already bad, that I've already, you know, engaged intimately with 2 people, but I need to try to get out of this thing alive. And for me to be able to do that, I need to have human interaction, right? So yeah, I spent 4 nights with this new boy, and he was pretty drunk the whole time. And from the first night, he said that he loved me, and I knew that that was a warning sign, and he was trying to get me to say it since that first night. And I finally said it on the 4th night, and then didn't see him for like 4 days. And yeah, and then we saw each other for a couple days, and then he was sad too. And also we were finally able to see each other again, I think on, this past Sunday night, and I knew he had fallen asleep on me, and I at least still have the strength to jump over a 6-foot wall. This is how I told him, I was like, at least you know how psycho I could be. But I knew that he had just fallen asleep because he had invited me over, and then an hour later I was over there and he didn't answer, and he needed to let me in through the gates. And so I saw the shortest wall, and I put my keys and cell phone on top and in my flip-flops, and I jumped over the wall, and then I knocked on his door, and he's like, oh yeah, I definitely fell asleep. So I knew that, but at least also I know in case he's in like a bad spot too, that I can go and rescue him. So that was the last time that I saw him, and haven't seen him since. And I just, even though I'm a little sad about that and knowing, but there's also has come this like realization. It came with, and I mean, I understand that this is terrible, that I just lost myself in another guy's dick, basically. And that's what happened with the 25-year-old. And then but something in me, and I mean, it started happening to me and thinking about my Canadian ex, is that I'm just, all of these boys are so scared of me. And it's either my hypersexuality, my intelligence, my desperate need for affection. And it's frustrating. It's infuriating to me I keep meeting people, and the people, and I've mentioned this before, that we always want the people who don't want us. Like, that's unfortunately the curse for most of us, that we're trying to get out from under. But it doesn't make things easier. It doesn't make things easier while trying to go through this pandemic, through this isolation, and knowing that you're too good for these boys, and knowing that they're not able to handle me. And I start thinking, like, you know, and when I was in my really sad places, and thinking that I'm too much, and looking back over my journal and seeing rereading what I was writing, going through that. And it's a very horrible place to feel like you will not be missed by anyone, like truly missed, right? Like, I know that I have friends that care about me, because that's one of the amazing qualities about me, is that I'm an amazing friend. And so when people don't want to, either, you know, the two basic things that I know about myself is that I'm fucking awesome in bed and I'm a very loyal friend. And so when you take those things away from me, when you don't want to fuck me, and when you stop wanting to be my friend, or really don't care about me as a friend as I care about you, that hurts. It's a very deep wound that I haven't been, you know, I can't really recover from. But it finally switched in me with the 25-year-old, about realizing that he doesn't care about me the way that I care about him, and that these boys are just not adequate enough. There haven't been, and it sucks for them, and I know. And we were, you know, the new boy and I, we were watching a lot of Bill Burr, and Bill Burr talks about how you have to fucking smush down your emotions, right? And as boys, you're taught not to talk about your emotions. You're not supposed to have any. And it's sad, because you're still fucking human beings. You still have feelings. You still have the pressures of life and everything else that we experience as humans, because we are complex. We are a complex species with many thoughts. So it sucks, because they don't know how to communicate to us. And I feel that that's a big, why why it's so hard to find someone in this world, and why it's going to be even more difficult to find someone now, because in trying to be aware and trying to practice social distancing and trying to keep the level of infection to a minimum, but while also trying to seek love, it's it's not gonna be easy. And for people who don't know how to communicate, say, you know, I've never even had a real conversation over the phone or through FaceTime video with these boys, because they're not able to communicate that way and converse in that way. And for me, for someone who is able to and is empathetic and able to understand many of life's difficulties and not being able to converse with someone on that intimate level, it's frustrating to me. I really, you know, I know that I need that. Before I have been saying that, you know, like I'm ready to have that like life partner that I'm going to succeed with, and knowing how much life fucking sucks, particularly now, right? So, this is why, again, need to fucking smoke weed. Try to stay relatively sane. But I'm getting warm sitting in the sunlight. I was breezy. There was a little wind before in the morning, but I don't feel any air circulation, so I'm melting a little bit right now. And I think this is long enough for my update post. I know that I have rambled here and there, and my train of thought is kind of all over the place. But I wanted to at least give some type of update on what's going on. Again, I know how fucking crazy this all is. At the same time, I'm really not surprised, I think, because we have an administration that doesn't follow science. So I'm just trying to do the best that I can. And I hope that all of you are trying to do the best that you all can. So stay safe. Try to stay relatively sane. And even though we are apart, we are all experiencing these feelings of anxiety and isolation right now. So I hope that you are keeping busy and have tried to maintain some sort of a routine if you don't have jobs that you are going to at the moment. And it's okay to engage in some of the things that help you, like smoking weed and drinking, to a point that it's not going to spiral you out of control. So those are my words for advice. Signing off for now, until who knows when the next time that I will do another one.